Put my camera on here. Hey, Susan, you there? Hello, Susan?
I'm here, Jeff. It's Michelle.
Yeah, you need to open me up here. I'm blocked from your end.
Oh. Why can I not? I need to block his video.
Ask him to.
Jeff, can you unblock your video?
I'm trying, but it's saying you got me locked up. All right, there we go.
Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, you should be good now. Jeff, it's all yours.
All right, fantastic. Can just somebody give me the okay that you actually see my my screen here for the PowerPoint slides? Michelle, Susan, can you confirm that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
All right, fantastic. Okay, let's get that on here then. All right,
Okay,
there we
we're
go.
good, Jeff.
All right, fantastic. Thanks. I know Michelle and Susan will be hanging around. Hey, folks. First off, thanks a lot for joining the webinar. A couple of things before we get started, because I know we have a limited amount of time here. First off, I want to thank the Chamber, and I'm actually a board member on the Chamber, so I want to thank them for allowing people to have these webinars. I think during this time, it's really important for everyone to stay connected and have a chance to share the information. So if you're a board member, that's great. If you're not a board member, or I'm sorry, a Chamber member, please contact them and get involved. We do a lot of good community service stuff, and also just a great way to connect with everybody as far as on the business side. I also want to thank the attendees for joining today. I know everybody's busy. You have a lot of things going on right now. It is crazy. It's hectic. But I do appreciate you taking the time to go over some material that I believe hopefully afterwards you'll take with you and be able to implement some of this. Maybe working in the business world right now. I'll also share the slide deck. I know that Michelle and Susan and the Chamber will be sending out the slides for you to have. So some of this material I'll be going through somewhat quickly because of the time frame that we have. I do want to be cognizant and respect your time on this, but you'll have the opportunity to have the slides. And then at the end, I will also share some resources with you that you can actually find more information on the topic that we're talking about. Some of the things that we're actually going to be going over today is talking about how the world is changing, and we're all living that right now. The remote work, the impact, results, and some of the challenges. I'm going to give you some statistics on that. We're going to jump into human behavior, and that's really the core of what we're going to be talking about today, and how that really impacts the remote work strategies and dealing with individuals that are working remotely. And many of you are probably in that same situation. So with that being said, as far as moving on and looking at this, I think we need to agree on one thing. And if you're an old Bob Dylan fan like I am, I always think of this: the times, they are changing, and they really are. If you look at where we were historically in the corporate world and where it is going to, there's an evolution here of being confined in the office setting where you're in cubicles or offices, and now working remotely. And when you look at some of the pictures I have on there, it's not uncommon that those pictures are reality right now. People are working from their home. They're working remotely in different areas, whether it's sitting on a beach or whether they're sitting by their RV or if they're in their home office. People have been forced to do that. It's a new thing. People have been doing that over time, but it's increased significantly over the last 6 months for sure, but over the last year as well. So times are changing, and we are in need of adapting to that in certain ways. Some people are adapting very quickly. Others are struggling in certain areas, and we'll talk about where that's occurring. The whole language is changing, and you know when we talk about what's happening right now with remote work, we can see some of the terms that are up here. Some of them you might think are funny, but they are reality. You know, we're hearing, well, let's Zoom and let's jump on Teams, and these unprecedented times and the norm and the different world that's occurring, and hearing you're on mute, or you better be on mute, or please mute because I can hear things in the background. And what is your background? You know, what happened to Jim? What happened to Mary? Are you still there? Because they kind of disappeared because they got disconnected. The noise in the background of the children, you know, going through classes, doing gymnastics or whatever online. And then the ultimate is, you know, the cat running in front of the camera or sitting on someone's lap. And there's so many more that are out there. It's funny, I was watching the news last week, and they were interviewing somebody, and in the background, there was a dog running in the background and a kid chasing the dog, and they were interviewing. That's become norm during these times. You know, we can look at it and say, boy, it'd be nice that when this is over, it's going to go back to the norm of what we're used to 2 years ago, but that's not going to happen. The reality is this is here to stay. What it will look like in a year, I don't know, and that's hard to predict. I don't think anybody knows. But the fact of the matter is there is going to be some change. There is going to be some evolution, some reality that's going to set in the next year that's going to cause us all to live a different life in the business world. Some quick statistics, just so we can get a baseline of where we are. You know, during the pandemic, right now, research is about 88%, and that's fluctuating because some people are going back to work right now, but others are really, you know, keeping with the remote workplace. About 88% of the workforce is at home right now. Before the pandemic, that was around 31%. Where that will settle, nobody knows. But a lot of organizations right now are announcing that they won't go back to work until at least next year. Some organizations are saying that they won't go back into the office at all, and others are trying to get their employees back into the office as we speak. Some research shows that 20% of the respondents say that they're planning on having some permanent remote positions. I mean, they're moving these into permanent. And by the year 2028, 73% of all departments will have some remote workers. Now, understandably, not everyone can work from a remote environment, but with the COVID-19 crisis and where we are right now, that number can even go higher. The impact, it is immense. You know, we can talk about the impact for hours, but one area that I want to concentrate on just for a moment here is talking about talent, recruitment. Keep in mind that right now, employees are adjusting to a new lifestyle. With that adjustment, when it comes time for going back to work, there's going to be another adjustment period. I'm working with individuals right now where some individuals are struggling being out into their home offices. Others are struggling because they have to go back in. So where this is going to fall out is a question. But there is some new realities that are taking place. One is that in the future with recruitment standards, this is going to be one of the issues that employees are going to look for. They're going to look for it as being a new option for them. It's going to, at some point in time, turn into a benefit. Prospective employees are going to ask about the 401k. They're going to ask about, you know, technology, and then they're going to ask about how many days can I work at home. It's going to become a norm that this is going to become a benefit that is going to be expressed by organizations. Now, when we look at it, we also look at the explosion of the opportunity of global availability of talent. what this has also done is it allowed organizations that are historically concentrated only on having people work in the office. It has now opened up their availability for prospective employees. Now I don't have to hire somebody local. Means I can hire talent from California, I can hire talent from Ireland or anywhere else in the world. If I'm used to and comfortable with having remote. And also, when you look at employee satisfaction and retention of employees, that's going to be another category where if this is taken away or when this is taken away with organizations, are going to be sad for other of that. So these are some of the results. You find research on both sides. Some of them you find that there are some negative results that are out there as well. But some of the results on the positive side is that employees are looking at it as working longer hours. They're home. They're situated. They're comfortable. Their own environment. They're working longer hours, and they're less likely to take off from work. So 53% of a study said that people will work and not take off time as much as they would if they were in the office. The new generation, the millennials, and about 69, 70% of them said that they're going to look at working at home, remote work, as more of a benefit, and they'll trade other benefits for that. That freedom to do a lot of different things, excuse me, they will trade off other benefits for that. One of the reasons is because people are looking at the cost factor. It's estimated right now that some analysts are saying around $5,000 employees are saving from not going to work. And think about that, savings on time, cost of your automobile, fuel, and so forth, lunches, whatever. You put it in there, they're saving money by working at home. And businesses are starting to realize that savings also. And that averages about $11,000 annually per a remote worker. So there's a lot of benefits that are happening here. And I don't want to repeat myself too much, but the outcome of this is still yet to be seen. But right now, the results that are coming in is that employees are happier, organizations are seeing benefits, and they've overcome some of the challenges of where it took to actually get to this place. When the whole process came about with COVID, organizations really drew back and had to immediately look at technology as the main means of doing business. Many organizations, and some that I've worked with, had no presence at all online. It was totally in the office. They were not prepared for it. They never thought about it. I mean, who would prepare? It's not like we had contingency plans in our strategic planning process for COVID-19. So what happened is the immediate reaction of organizations was to get technology in place, buy computers, get people at home, set up Zoom, get teams going, capacity of technology, IT services. They were scrambling, and rightfully so. What has happened is many of those companies, and probably most of those companies, because if they haven't, they're struggling to probably a detrimental point. But what has happened is that technology now is starting to settle down. They have it in place. And now it's really time to concentrate on the people. And it's not like it should be just starting right now. It should have started a long time ago. But the emergency and the immediacy of dealing with technology took up most of the energy. Now employers are looking at, we have our technology in place. How do we get the employees to be satisfied, and how do we get productivity, satisfaction, collaboration? How do we get this out of our employees? And this is where employees are now somewhat struggling and also working aggressively to overcome. Because with the positive nature of remote work, there are also the challenges that are out there. And these challenges, and some of them are listed on the screen here, these challenges are also starting to pop up. Disengaged employees where they don't feel that they're part of the team. There's not that collaboration and cohesiveness. There's frustrations on the technology side. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, I got up this morning and my entire neighborhood was, Comcast was out. It was, done. And I'm like, oh my, I've got an 8:30 meeting on Zoom. I've got a 10 o'clock meeting. I've got this meeting, all of a sudden you start getting frustrated with the technology. That connectivity, that communications that people really need in the office and talking to people. There's some challenges there. When we bring on new employees, one of the frustration right now is they don't get that immediate interaction, that face-to-face of walking around the building and meeting people and seeing people at lunch and talking to them, getting to know them personally. And then we have this Zoom burnout, I call it, and it's one after another. I've got some of my clients are on Zoom meetings 1 hour after the other. They're on Zoom meetings from 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. And by the time 4 o'clock comes rolling around, 3 o'clock comes rolling around, they're done. So the burnout is starting to also be one of those challenges. And then we have this leadership effectiveness. And that's really what we're going to talk about in the next 20 minutes here, is leaders need to adjust to this entire situation. And we can talk for hours talking about how leaders need to adjust to technology and productivity and so forth. But I want to concentrate on really looking at your team and trying to understand these individuals so that you as a leader can work effectively with them so that they're comfortable working from home, so that you get that collaboration, you get that relationship building. They don't feel that loneliness and isolation that are causing some of the challenges right now. So this is a short list of challenges. Again, where this is going to go, nobody knows right now, but everybody's pretty much watching it to see how it's going to pan out. The one thing I want to talk about is human behavior, because this is really important when you start looking at how individuals are actually handling working from home. I'm not going to get into a lot of the background of DISC, but we're going to talk about what it is. We use DISC at Solutions 21 as a foundation. We found it to be very effective. It's quick, it's easy to understand, and the results are proven. So we have used this for many, many years. And this is not a lesson on DISC, but I want to go through real quick so that you understand what this human behavior is and how it really impacts individuals. When you really look at it, there's 4 essential behavioral styles, and there's a mixture of them and so forth, but there's 4 that you really look at. And if you can identify what you are and you can identify what somebody else is, then there's that relationship there. And there's where you can then build some collaboration and you can satisfy some of those challenges that we were talking about. When you look at these 4 essential behavior styles, you can look at the top 2 on the hemisphere there. And the top 2 is more of the active base. They're fast-paced, they're assertive, dynamic, bold, they're directive. They're going after challenges. They have that personality that is really results-driven and very much, in some cases, more on the people side. You have on the bottom hemisphere, you've got the thoughtful individuals, moderately paced, calm, methodical, careful. Analytical is going to be in there. Change is going to be in there as well. On the left-hand side, you have more of the questioning, more logic-focused, objective, skeptical, and challenging type individuals. And on the right-hand side, you got more people-focused, receptive, and agreeable. So when you look at the 4 areas that we have on the active and thoughtful and the questioning and accepting, if you combine the active and questioning, that's where the D, what we would call a D-type behavior, comes in play. If you go into the active and accepting, that's more of an I or influence. The S is more steadiness, and that's accepting and thoughtful. And then you have the conscientiousness, which is more questioning and thoughtful. I know we went through that quick. Like I said, you can have the slides and you can take a look at that. But more importantly than understanding where they are, I really want you to start understanding how they act and what their behavior is, because that's really what the most important piece of this whole thing is. So when you look at somebody that is a more dominant style, a D type characteristic, these individuals are more, like I said, direct, they're goal-oriented, they're results, they like results, they like a variety in what they do, they're motivated by challenges. Some of the, there's a negative there too. They do show a lack of concern for others. Sometimes their directness comes across a little bit the wrong way. They get very impatient at times whenever they're trying to express something. When it comes to a challenging conversation, these individuals will look at what I would think maybe of an argument, more of a conversation, where others may look at it as being a derogatory argument. So this type of individual, and what I always do is I always give an example of an elevator, and we're all used to getting into an elevator, and with each one of these styles, I picture in my mind who these people are, and think about this: that if you're walking up to an elevator and somebody is standing there and they're tapping their watch and they're hitting the button 100 times, which it doesn't work. I mean, you hit it once, the elevator's coming down. It's not, you can hit it 10 times, it's not going to go any faster. The fact is that person is more of a D style on their behavior. They're very much, they got to get up to the 38th floor. They want to do it quick. They're not concerned about what's happening around their environment. They're concentrated very much on that specific event. They're getting frustrated because the elevator's not coming down quick enough. Even if they're on time, they're hitting that button and looking at their watch. That's more of a D type behavior. The I on the opposite end is more of the outgoing, the enthusiastic, lively. They like the social interaction. They're very people-oriented. They're optimistic in nature. These individuals would be in a organization that float around and talk to people on Monday morning about how their weekends were. They're asking people on Friday what they're going to do on the weekend. They're happy to go to the wedding on Saturday and get together for the football game. They're the ones that would be the cheerleaders in the organization, that being so optimistic and encouraging. In the elevator, it's the person that gets in the elevator and starts talking to everybody. And not everybody is comfortable doing that. When a D gets into an elevator, they're going to stand there and not say a word. When an I gets into an elevator, they're going to ask how everybody's doing, what floor you're going on, and they'll know everybody. They'll know eight different people by the time that elevator gets up to the 32nd floor. So we all seen I's in the workplace. The S's, a little bit hard to kind of pick on the S's as far as where they come in the environment. They're very consistent. They're gentle, they're accommodating, very team oriented. They use tactful communications. When it comes to change, they may have questions as far as why are we changing? How quickly are we changing? They're not adept to really jumping into change, similar to a D who will change in a blink of an eye without even thinking of the results and the consequences. The S will think about what's going on there. They can give in a lot. When you come down to the elevator, they're the ones that are going to hold the elevator for the person that's walking slow. You've got the D that's going to be in there upset because somebody's holding the elevator, the I that's going to be talking to somebody, and the D or the S is going to hold the elevator door for someone to come in. So they're hard to pick out as far as noticing them. However, they're very, very important in the organization as well. The C's are somewhat analytical. They look at things a little bit more differently. They believe in processes, correctness, procedures. They can become overcritical of themselves because they expect they have high expectations of themselves and others. They're the ones that will be interested in Excel spreadsheets, talking about data, proof of concept, asking a lot of questions on, why are we doing something and how can we prove that it's going to be done right? They also are sometimes brought out of the conversation. They don't jump into the conversation. They methodically think through things. On the elevator example, these are the individuals that are going to walk in, push the button, and read the sign that says the elevator holds 2,500 pounds and try to figure out how many people are on the elevator and calculate that out and see if they're hitting the 2,500 pounds. Their mind thinks that way. So when you look at the 4 areas, that's basically the 4 areas of behavior that's out there. We all have, no matter who we are, we have these characteristics. We have these behaviors, and we call that style. And this style that's out there is set in place somewhere in this circle of the disc where it identifies our dominant style. We don't like to say somebody is, high S, high C, or, and so forth. We don't like to categorize people because there is a mixture as well. But we all have some sort of strong mark when it comes down to our behavioral tendencies. When I went through the last 4 slides, hopefully you looked at yourself and said, I'm that person on the elevator. I'm the one that's going to press the button. I'm the one who's going to talk to people. I'm the one who's going to calculate the weight, or I'm the one who's going to let the person who's walking slow, I'm going to give them time to come in. If you can categorize yourself, then that's one step closer to accomplishing what we need to accomplish here. Because in order for you to adapt to other people, you need to first realize where you are. I'm naturally a high D, and anybody that knows me would probably say, yep, he's a high D. I have some tendencies that are there. Be careful with those tendencies. I have to watch those tendencies. I have to adjust those tendencies. That's part of not only working in the workplace, but also working with remote workers. So we have this tendency, which is characteristics of our style, but we have this blend also. And as I stated, we go into our normal tendency, our comfortable tendency. In this case here, a person with a high C, they're very comfortable, but they also have some tendencies that go into their D, and some, maybe not much in this case, of I, and they do have some S that is sitting out there. So we have a blend of these characteristics. The goal of what you need to do as a leader is to look at where you are, identify where other people are, and then you stretch into different areas. In this case here, someone is stretching from a high C. The closer you get out to the outside of the area, outside of the circle, the heavier that tendency. It's going to take you more time to stretch into different areas. For example, stretching into a D or stretching into an S, depending on what that other person is that you're working with, where they are. If someone looks to stretch from an extreme high C into an extreme high C or high I, it's going to take some behavioral changes. You're going to feel the discomfort there because that's not normal, your tendency to do something like that. I'll give an example of me would be I'm a very high D. If I go to a function with a lot of people and everybody's talking and everybody's a high I, it takes me time to navigate myself and stretch over to an area where it might be a little uncomfortable for me. So that's where, you know, a leader really starts to make some progress with individuals, especially in the remote environment, is when they understand who they are, what characteristic they are, and then what characteristic their team is or the individuals they're talking to, and then adjust those behavioral styles so that it matches. And by doing so, individuals will then start to become more collaborative. They'll start to produce more. They'll start to be engaged a little bit more. So how do you pick these people out? And this is always the hard thing. And, you know, I put this out there. I could have put 100 of these things out there, but this is the hardest thing. And I'll tell you, when I go, when I talk to clients, I always tell them, listen, you need to practice this because reading people is difficult. It's hard. But if you can lock this in somehow, if you can lock in reading people, and when we do seminars, we have a whole basis of reading people. It's unique. It's great. One of our colleagues came up with it, and it works so well. But I tell clients, I say, you know, when you're going through the grocery store and you got a checkout person, try to read what they are. By the way they talk to you, how do they exhibit their behavior? When you go out to dinner, what's the server doing? You know, when you're in the workplace, what are people doing? Whenever you're online, how are people interacting on Zoom? This understanding of reading people is something that you put in your arsenal, because as soon as you can read somebody, you can adjust your behavior. And it's not being disingenuous by any means. It's adjusting your behavior so that it improves that communication. It improves that collaboration. So when you look at it, and like I said, I put a list here, and there's 100 other ones that are out here. But you need to practice this. Practice it on your family, you know, and you could probably pinpoint, as I'm talking, you could probably pinpoint people that you work with and say, yep, that person's a D. Yep, that person's an I. Oh boy, that's a C, or yeah, it might be an S. So you're kind of categorizing people, and that's important. But some of the clues that are out there for working remotely, which is sometimes difficult because I'm not standing in front of you. The body language is sometimes not there, and body language is so important as well. And I don't have that. So I've got to look at certain things. I've got to look at some of the verbal cues that are out there. You know, are they asking a lot of questions? Maybe they're asking about reports and data. That might be a C. If they're feeling frustrated and maybe getting defensive and, hey, this meeting's taken too long, could be a D that's out there. If they're always agreeing on things, you're asking, hey, Mary, what do you think? Yeah, I agree with everybody. Yeah, it might be a C. So when I say it might be, that's where it takes time. It takes time to really lock these individuals into different areas, and it may take time for you to lock yourself into a particular area. But the goal is once you do that, then you can build upon some strategies that allow you to work more effectively with individuals. So I want to run through some of these strategies. First off, everyone is adjusting to this. Everyone. There's nobody that's out there that's not adjusting. And realize that different DISC styles are going to have different needs and approaches. We just do. As human beings, our behavior is going to dictate some specific needs and wants that we have when we're working remotely. And new leaders, there's new approaches, new methods, and boy, there's new stressors as well. I was on a call today for a board meeting for the chamber, and I put this in last minute because someone said it, and it just really hit home. She said the dynamics of how we work moving forward will change permanently. And it was coming from somebody in her company, and it's a large company in Pittsburgh. But that's saying right there, and I'm not going to mention who it is. If she's online right now, she'll know. But when she made the statement, it was impactful, because that's what companies are thinking. It's going to change permanently. So when we look at how do we do this, the golden rule is always out there, and we talk about that all the time. But we've moved also to the platinum rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated. And by doing so, that's accommodating their behavior, stretching into those areas, identifying who they are, and then stretching into those areas. Then it starts to build a little bit more progress, excuse me. So when we look at the D or the dominance, how do we adapt to these people? The easiest way, remember what I said, they're very direct, goal-oriented, they need results, they're outspoken. So with these individuals, you have to communicate directly to them. You have to allow some debates. They're going to want that healthy debates. They're going to want to talk things out. Listen to their ideas. They like competition and they want to be heard. It doesn't mean they're always right, but they want to be heard. And also remember that sometimes they tend to hear things and remember information only what they agree on. So you need to reaffirm that understanding. And you can reaffirm that by asking questions, asking for clarification, asking for understanding and acceptance. But keep in mind, these individuals will not be quiet. They will normally state their case. And if they become agitated or irritated, or the meeting is progressing too long, you will notice that very much so in their voice and in the way they communicate. So you have to hit them with direct communications, limit the personal questions and communications, allow for some conflict, and also reaffirm understanding with these people. The I, a little bit different. We have a lot of interaction with the I. They want to feel like they're connected. They want to talk about things. If you can have any collaborative tools, Slack, Microsoft Teams, or anything that's open all the time, that they can chat and they can see people that are in and they're communicating, they want to see that. The whole thing of video conferencing, seeing people, talking to people, they desire to have that. In a lockdown situation right now, these individuals are probably struggling the most because they need that interaction. The open discussion. How's your family doing? How's it going? How are you adapting? How are you feeling? Those types of questions to get that emotional response from them is very important. They may want to talk about that. You may need to take that offline, off of the conversation or the meeting that you're in, but those individuals, you need to become available to them and maximize that connection. The D is a little bit, they're fine for a while if you let them go on their own. You just got to kind of watch what they do at times because they just might be going and going. The I, if you let them out there, the isolation's going to hit. They're going to die from the isolation. They're going to wonder why they're not involved. They're going to be disengaged. And emotionally, it will start impacting them. So you have to be very careful with an I that you keep this going, because in an office setting, they're used to talking to people. So you got to be really aware of that. The S's, again, really hard. The S's are going to be comfortable in a way with working remotely. But there's a couple things that you need to watch when you're working with an S. First off, the way the world is changing right now is impacting S's. They don't do well sometimes with quick changes. So, having a Zoom meeting and changing that meeting or changing the direction or not having any type of reason for the meeting, it's an open type agenda. They may refine back a little bit. They may pull back a little bit. If there's aggression or any type of disagreements that's causing possibly unhealthy conflict, they're going to regress. They're not going to be communicative. So you got to be really careful with that. Talking about their fears and their worries. Again, they're very patient. They're team oriented. They want this to work. It's just that the change is still impacting them a little bit. So be careful with that and don't give them any surprises when you work with them in a remote environment. And then you have the C's, and the C's are going to be very comfortable working remotely. They're gonna draw back and work on whatever they need to work on. The reports, the diagrams, the accounting sheets. They're going to be fine with that. They are a lot better with written communications than Zoom or Teams. They don't have a big need to see people, but they do have a need for you to address their information that they're providing. There's value to it. Remember what I said, they're reserved, they're precise, they're correct, and they want to be acknowledged that the information that they're giving is useful and it's worth something. So be formal with the discussions. They're not real interested normally in discussing anything on a personal nature. They get right down to it. Here's what the point is. Here's where we need to go with this. And when you look at sometimes the questioning can be aggressive. It could be let's get to the point. How are these numbers going to impact us? What's the result? When are we going to get out of this mess? When are we going to go back to work? They want times, they want dates, they want actions, they want plans. Their mind works very much in an analytical manner. So you've got to be aware of that. Here's some other things to keep in mind. First off, creating a psychologically safe environment and be aware of their challenges. And that really goes down to the third point there, just having patience and empathy for individuals. You might be sitting there very comfortable working at home, very comfortable working with Zoom, Teams, and the plethora of other online platforms that are out there. But other individuals are balancing that. They're trying to get used to it. So you have to have some empathy for that and try to understand their point of view. And take individuals that you see that are not working well with them, take them offline, excuse me, and have a one-off and talk to them and reassure them that things are going to be okay, especially if they're in that I category or maybe an S category. Stretch that behavior, identify other people who they are. If you have teams that you're working with, have a sheet of paper and identify those people. I tell my clients, if you have people working for you, you should have their name and what do you think they are, and just start adapting to that. And right now, it's communicate, communicate, and communicate. Any means that you have available, because all of the behaviors, all of them, whether it's a D, I, S, or C, still need communications. They still need to have that connection built so that they stay collaborative and they still remain engaged in what you're doing as an organization. So with that, we do have a cheat sheet available, and you can see the address for that cheat sheet. We developed this cheat sheet for our clients. We're opening it up to you. It gives you a lot of great information, a lot more than I covered in this quick 35 minutes here, that you can grab a hold of, take a look at. If you want to go to that site, you can do that, or you can email me directly, and I will get that out to you as well. In fact, I will send that also to Michelle and Susan at the Chamber, and they can make that available. The other thing is that we just put out, actually our president put out a new book that was released last month. It does talk a lot about remote work, but it also has a number of other great information in there dealing with superpowers, career chessboard, commander's intent. And if you've never heard of some of these terms, it's because it is right on the cusp of what's happening here. And this is not a book that is going to talk about historical leadership. It's talking about what we need in the 21st century. So you can get that on Amazon, or you can contact me, or you can go to that website. You can always contact me for anything at all. Let's stay in touch. I'm available anytime. This is my contact information. This is what I do, and this is what I love to do. So if you have any need at all or any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you about it. These are times that are, not to use the same terms that we hear so many times out there of being just unprecedented times. They are times where it's uncomfortable, and they're times where we're all trying to adapt, keep our organizations going, keep them competitive, and keep them operational as best as we possibly can. If I can ever help out in anything, please let me know. If I can't help you, our team is a powerful team, and we can always help you with anything that you might have. So with that, I know that was a quick 40 minutes, and I went through a lot of information, but I will open it up for any questions at all that you might have. You just let me know. So I'm going to turn the floor over to any questions.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks everyone. Susan Hovanek here from the chamber. Hi, I can tell you, any of you who know me, hi, good to see you all, or any of you. I kind of I have the event attendance, and I was looking through the names, and it took me back to if you're a child of the 60s, when they were doing the Good Morning, Ricky in the morning show would say, good morning, and I was like checking everyone, like, oh, there's Amy, there's Eileen. That's me. That was me in the background. You didn't know that.
Very true.
If anybody does have any questions or comments, now would be the time. I know I see the challenge at home. My husband is all day on with an ear set and a microphone. And thank goodness he got those tools also. Tools are very important because he's able to stand up and move a little bit instead of being sequestered in front of that particular meeting or that webinar or that conference or whatever it is. So sometimes tools are important too.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, was there a question?
There is a question that came in.
Okay.
How do you maintain empathy with individuals with work life being more computerized and remote?
So, and that's a good question, because one thing that I did not get into just because of time was the work-life balance. And this is where there are some struggles. I mean, I work with people right now. I mean, just consider the people with children right now that, you know, have a normal basis of putting their kids on the bus and then going to work. And now they're at home, in some cases, trying to homeschool 3 kids, you know, 5-year-olds online and stuff like that. It is a balancing act. It really is. What we have to do is we have to look at it as not an 8-to-5 job anymore. You know, working remotely is an 8 a.m. job to 8 a.m. Monday through Sunday. And, you know, we have to look at it as more of the output and productivity is measured not by what somebody can do from 8 in the morning till 5. It's measured by what somebody could accomplish over the time that you need for them to accomplish it. And I can tell you for myself too, and I work from home all the time, but the fact is that I'm working till 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night sometimes. Sometimes I've got 3 hours in the day that I'm doing other things, but I'm working Saturdays as well. So our work life, our days and times have changed as well. And people need to understand that. That's where communication comes from the leader, where it's, you know, hey, this is no longer a Monday through Friday work life. This is whenever we can get it done. We need it done by Friday. I don't care if you work at 10 o'clock and you put your kids through homeschooling from 8 to 12, but it needs to be done by Friday. That's where our concern has to be. The empathy comes in by understanding that there are those challenges. I mean, there are. I've got challenges. Everyone has challenges. But deadlines are deadlines. We have to have productivity. We have to get it done. It just might be at 2 o'clock in the morning when they get it done. And that's okay as long as I have it for the time frame that I need it. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, so we have a few more questions coming in. How do you recreate learning through osmosis during personal interaction in a remote world?
Say that again.
How do you recreate learning through osmosis during personal interaction in a remote world? So we're taking what happens in learning, things you just learn because you're there, and now you're in a remote world. You're not in the interacting of things.
I see. So, and that's a great question too, because you are pulling people out of an environment where there are some natural learning that takes place, the collaboration. And that's one of the challenges. And when you look at it, it's the only answer that I can give is that comes with additional communications, and it comes more from the leader really turning into that coach to coaching their employees and training them and spending more time with people. I worked in an office setting all my life. I mean, I have 30 years in an office setting. I can tell you a lot of great things, but I can tell you a lot of downtime and waste of time as well. But I did learn some things by sitting by people and hearing things and so forth. So it is very hard to compensate for that. But I believe that the team leader, the supervisor, the owner of the company has to become more engaged. They have to become more of a teacher of certain things, and they have to collaborate more. And that's that communication. So I'm not saying that it's a perfect scenario. It is a scenario that causes challenges, but I believe that the way to do that is to communicate more.
Thanks, Jeff. We have another question. Do you have any tips on how to build breaks into our workday? It's not uncommon to start at 7 or 8 and realize at 3 o'clock that I've not taken a break. This can lead to burnout without us even realizing it, as well as mental fatigue. Do you have any solutions for that?
You know what? I'm going to tell you something. This is the pure truth. I was actually getting ready today this morning, and I listened to podcasts and stuff like that. And for this, this morning, I thought, I'll listen to a podcast on remote work and stuff just to get my head in gear. And someone mentioned something that's really important, so easy. And I'm like, wow, I never thought, I don't know why I ever thought about that. Because here's what happens. And I'm in the same boat, 7 o'clock, get up. Okay, now I got a Zoom meeting at 8. Oh boy, I can't talk to you anymore because I'm done. And someone's coming into my waiting room, and I'm Zooming at 9 and Zooming at 10. So here's what this person does. And I think it's such a simple, easy thing. Okay. They plan their meetings on the quarter or 3/4 hour. So it's not, I'll meet you at 10. It's, I'll meet you at 10:15. Okay. I've got a 10:15 meeting or start at 7 o'clock. Well, now my next meeting's at 8:15. Okay. So now it allows for a little bit of overage on there. But if I end at 8, I can take 15 minutes to breathe a little bit. I can go outside and breathe. I can maybe check a couple emails. I can go grab breakfast or something for 15 minutes. So if I schedule my time a little differently, now that's on the Zoom calls. When you don't have Zoom calls and you're just plain sitting in your office, this is where burnout just happens from remote work. You have to force yourself to take these breaks. You just have to. It's just a behavior that you have to have. You have to take that time to go have lunch and not eat while you're on your screen. Go outside, take some fresh air, go for a walk, take the dog out for a walk or whatever. You have to force yourself to do that. So I would say that 1, forcing yourself to do things, and 2, planning your time where you plan those breaks in, and don't plan it from a 7 to 4 o'clock hourly meeting. It becomes unrealistic.
Good. So, and another question. We went from this will be a few weeks to many organizations not returning until the summer of 2021. How do I develop our next generation who we're hoping to step into the leadership roles?
Okay, that's a really good question, because this is now happening in organizations. So the best way that I can answer this is that statistically, here's where the statistics are. Statistically, it takes a manager or supervisor 10 years before they have any type of formal training in leadership. That's why a lot of leaders fail. They're put in positions. You take the best welder and you make them a supervisor of welders, and then you lost your welder and they can't manage the welders that are there. So now you're all over the place. So I'm going to say this. What we have found in our organization is companies that we work with are not getting rid of their training programs. They're not. They're increasing their training programs. Right now I have about 100 people that I work with, coaching them on a year-long process. And our team, we've got offices in Pittsburgh, Nashville, Kansas City, and Phoenix. And we have a highly skilled team. And we are coaching hundreds of those individuals that are in that area that they want to move up, because one of the problems is there's succession planning is so big right now, and just training those managers to move up. They don't have that direct connection. It's not like that manager can go over and say, hey, I'm going to train you, okay? So what we've done is, and what we've always done, is we've taken these people and we work with them, we coach them. What it is now is a lot of them are being coached online. I'm doing this with people in many cases, not in all cases. I've got clients here in Pittsburgh, I go to their office. But in some cases, we've got clients all over the country. We're getting on the screen, we're talking, we're working through that process, and we're going through that training program. So, and I'm not doing this for a plug of Solutions 21. I'm doing this in all sincerity. If an organization is not training their leaders, whether they're in an office or right now out of the office, which is even harder, then they're doing a disservice to their entire organization. So that's what I'm seeing right now. Organizations are jumping on, hey, we can do it Zoom, we can train them, let's not stop, let's keep it going, and let's move forward with what we need to do as far as developing our future leaders and also satisfying that succession planning on organizations. It's really important.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing these valuable tips with us, for us who are in the remote workforce, and how these behavioral differences will impact our success. Thank you to all of you who joined us today for this webinar. And if you've registered today for the webinar, you will receive the PowerPoint later today in an email, in a follow-up email. And then also look for this recorded webinar to be archived on the Chamber's website in the near future. We want to thank Pittsburgh Networks for sponsoring our Business Solutions webinar series. And we invite you to join us next Wednesday on September 30th at 10 a.m. for networking and connecting in today's environment. I think that'll be very interesting for those people who are looking for that interaction and how to build their networks. So you'll find details and registration on our website. Reach out to us if there's anything that you need. And we wish you all a great and productive rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.